All right. How do Jin, Wei Chen, Suzy, and the Monkey King's feelings about themselves, their culture, and heritage influence how they are treated by others? Do their attitudes make them feel better or worse about themselves? What do they finally come to realize, and how do they come to this realization? Does this idea have any connection to the movie Mean Girls?
I said it had a couple connections to Mean Girls. Like, whenever they didn't feel good about themselves, they always took it out on somebody else. And, like, there was a part in the movie of Mean Girls, like, they were talking about, like, all their flaws and stuff. And then they went through, like, the burn book after and pointed out everybody else's flaws. So I think it was just trying to make themselves feel better about their flaws.
I think it relates to Mean Girls too, and that being theirself is fine, because at the end of the movie, Katie is back on the math team, and the Monkey King knows it's alright to be himself, so they just kind of learn that being themselves is fine, and they don't have to be embarrassed about it.
Off of that, I feel like at the beginning they all feel ashamed of their cultures, and feel like they need to rise above them and be superior in like different ways. And then like initially they feel better about themselves, but in the end I feel like they feel worse and feel like they need to be true to themselves.
Yeah, on page 31, I talked about how Jen and Wei Chen kind of like first they like stuck to their cultural heritage of like where they came from and stuff, but then once they saw how others treated them, they kind of changed with Jen changing his personality for Danny.
I think one way that Mean Girls kind of relates to the book is when Katie goes to the Halloween party, she sees that her costume stands out, and that's kind of like the Monkey King when he wears or doesn't wear shoes and everyone else does.
I feel like all these characters are different cultures and have wanted to be like any other culture, and so they look down upon others. Like page 102 and page 200 show that pretty well.
I agree with that. I said on page 114 when Chinky was like eating the gizzards and stuff, everyone was making fun of him because they were like didn't feel like their culture and heritage, so they were doing that in order to like make themselves feel better. So like others have already said it.
I really think that the Monkey King changed his appearance or like tried to fit in most because like he shape-shifted into like a more human form. Like he was walking more upright. He had like more distinct facial features than like the other monkeys. And you see that on page 58. And then he forces all of his monkey follower people things to wear shoes so they can try and conform to become more human, and that's on page 55.
I noticed, breakpoint, I don't want to just like interrupt really, but I noticed that with Wei Chen, he seemed to be the most comfortable with his heritage in the book, and for that reason you can see that he was treated a lot differently by like the white kids in his school. Like you never really see him bullied that much or anything like that. Definitely not as much as Jin, and that was kind of interesting to me. And I noticed that the Monkey King and Jin are like both kind of common because or similar because they're not at all really comfortable with themselves and they really want to be somebody different or something different. And I think that ends up like pushing away people around them and having them have like a harder time with their life just because like I don't know, that the idea that they aren't comfortable with themselves.
Back to your thing about like Wei Chen, do you think that part of like the reason why he wasn't as like, I don't know if it was like discriminated against or like whatever, was because like he was already like changed and he wasn't like a monkey anymore and he was already like kind of assimilating to the culture by being human?
Yeah, I think it's partly that, also partly like that he didn't really have any stakes in the game of human life. Like he was just kind of there messing around, but for whatever reason, that made him comfortable being Wei Chen, and the people around him saw that he was comfortable as Wei Chen, and that affected how he was treated and how he treated other people in the book a lot.
Whereas Chen was uncomfortable.
Right, so he had like a frantic energy of trying to like always act different or a certain way, and like people know about that stuff, and he's
maybe that's why he had such a difficult time in high school or middle school.
I think it's easier to like, look down on someone when they're not as comfortable with themselves too, so I think that's why, another reason why Wei Chen like wasn't, made fun of as much as some of the others as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think the characters from ABC allowed themselves to become. Well, they thought of their heritage, and when they reflected on themselves, they thought that them being the minority was a bad thing. And instead of, comparing that to Mean Girls, we have this group of the girls that allow themselves to create this image of how everyone else should look like. And instead, I believe that the characters from ABC looked at their heritage and their group and thought of themselves as something that you shouldn't look like. So I believe the comparison between the two is, the contrast is like just your vulnerability and how you see yourself can really affect the way others see you too, especially if you decide to act on it.
I think that the characters' attitudes made them feel better at first, like when they were mean, especially the Monkey King when he refused to call himself a monkey on page 15, but then later on he realized how bad of a character he actually was, and then when they transformed they realized that they didn't need to be someone else, and who they were at first led them to have like a better life after.
And also when they did that, like, they found a way to redeem themselves. Like, the Monkey King helped out the guy who was getting attacked by the demons, and he was helpful to him. And then Katie Heron just, when she gave out the crown to everybody, they kind of like redeemed themselves from everything they've done.
Going after that, what I didn't really like seeing in the book is that what Jim did was on page 226 is like he kind of threw away his culture and heritage, and that was shown like because Jim tried to order something off the Chinese menu, but he couldn't read it, and he ended up ordering like the cash only at the restaurant. So I didn't really like. I just feel like Jim made a mistake, and he realized that at the end by throwing away his culture and heritage.
But I have a question really fast, and then we can go later. So did his parents turn white too when he became a new person? No. Cause I saw in the book where they were like, your cousins here, weren't his parents white?
Never showed his parents.
No, yeah, because his
They
dad
didn't
was
show his parents?
Pretty
Oh,
sure
different
not.
story.
His dad was
Story merged at
like
that time.
Chinese.
And you only saw the mom's back.
Okay, okay.
And it's like just magic, so you don't
Yeah,
have
so-
to worry about stuff like that.
Brady, you could finish.
I was just gonna go back to Lauren's point and say that I agree, and I can see like their attitudes make them feel better in the end of American-born Chinese. Like on page 223, when the Monkey King tells Jin, I think, that he would have, that he wasted like 500 years under those rocks if he would have just been happy like who he was. So in the end, he actually felt better about himself.
Kind of going back to Evan's point about how Mean Girls and American Born Chinese was kind of contrasting viewpoints, and how Mean Girls was kind of from like the popular girls viewpoint, and American Born Chinese was from like the minority viewpoint. I'd be really interested to see those movie and books flip. So to see Mean Girls from like the unpopular people's perspective, so like Katie's friends or something,
Yeah.
and then like the perspective of Greg and Amelia or something, and American Born Chinese, to see how like they see the discrimination happening from their viewpoints, just to get a better perspective. We have about 2 minutes. So.
You can always go to the next question. But I heard Carolyn, were you about to say something? If you were, I thought you
Now
were
or
about to say
forever
something, I
hold
didn't
your
know.
peace.
I have a question.
Okay, let's-
What helps them finally come to this realization? I don't know, it's in the book. Just read it.
Okay.
If anyone wants to.
Like the realization of,
Yeah, can you clarify that?
because there's like two separate
It says,
questions.
what do they,
I think you're doing my job a little bit. I'm
Just a
kidding.
little.
Kidding. Go ahead.
Oh, do their attitudes make
just
them
act
feel
like I
better or
didn't
worse?
ask anything.
Okay, sorry.
Jeez.
No, it's.
Alright, Fletcher.
I feel
Your turn.
like okay. Do we stop time?
Yeah, go ahead.
I guess I'll add just one more thing. I feel like their attitudes may have made them feel worse, especially for example on page
Oh, no, we're good.
207, on page 180.
Yeah.
Where Jamie turned into his white counterpart and actually physically fought Chinky and actually fought Chinky. I felt like he was really kind of beating up himself in a sense. So therefore, I felt like he really did not like himself so much that it was in his mind a fight between his white counterpart and Chinky, and so I thought that would probably seem like that would be pretty good.
Okay, that was a really nice.
Thank you.
We done?
Switching her.